Hey, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast. My name's Kevin McCaffrey. Over there is Adam Mamawala. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing well. You know, before we started recording, we were talking about Kevin and his wife Jamie driving across the country back to the Midwest for the holidays, and here I am drinking coffee out of the official mug of driving across the country. Cracker Barrel.
Hey.
We got a Cracker Barrel mug in the house.
Cracker Barrel mugs. I have never been inside a Cracker Barrel. One of my best friends used to work there a lot, though. But yeah, they got they have a little shop, right?
They got jams and candles, and everything is fried. And you know, the Cubs are starting to feel like a Cracker Barrel. It's like, why do people think this is a high-end place? It is clearly not.
Yeah, we at some point just have to believe the merch. I know we've got the DraftKings betting stable being built on the side of Wrigley. Maybe we can add a place where you buy trinkets off to the side as well, a Cracker Barrel-esque sort of series of things if we need to get the money up, which is that the problem? Is it not the problem? I don't know. Follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram and all the things, but I guess I would say vibes are bad in Cubland, but honestly, Adam, I feel like in Batman when Bane is like, you know, I was born in the dark. Like he's welcoming Batman there. He's like, this isn't an advantage for you. I've been here the whole time. So part of me, I'm not even sad this week because this is what I feel like we have known to be going on for a long time. And this is one of a few podcasts. Wrigleyville Nation's another one. When Corey and Brendan are going on the CHGO, those guys are pretty on it too. Sarah, but there's a few out there, but we haven't been fooled, I don't think, by the pretend plan that the Cubs have had going for a while, and only now with Carlos Correa signing and the Cubs being down to Dansby Swanson or bust, it's like, welcome guys. We've known this was coming. The lack of a plan the whole time.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Jed's cooking.
Let Jed cook. Can someone teach Jed how to cook first? Honestly, if you've been working alongside a 5-star chef for most of your life and you still can't make a pancake, you can't cook. Like, I don't know what we're just seeing Jed be in over his Jed this whole time. Like, there is no plan that is reasonable at this point. And as you pointed out, I think last time when Crane Kenney was coming out and Ricketts coming out saying like he's got the money, Crane Kenney even came out and said he didn't spend all the money he had last year, so it should be rolling into this year. And it's done nothing. So what's happening?
I really don't know. I mean, you talked about DraftKings before, and much like DraftKings, who still owes us $30, we know you have the fucking money.
We've seen it.
Use it. Please spend the money. I mean, it's just I don't want this to just be us yelling for half an hour, but I think Cubs fans are rightfully frustrated. Talk about a dangerous time on Cubs Twitter for Twitter to potentially expand the character limit by like 4,000 characters. I mean, Cubs Twitter is really, if you think Cubs Twitter is bad now, wait until everyone can type manifestos on it. But I mean, just for God's sakes, I don't follow hockey. I don't know if the Blackhawks are any good, but the Bears have 3 wins. The Bulls only lose in overtime. I don't know what to do anymore, man.
Yeah, the Bulls do only lose in overtime, which is they are almost winning and losing in the worst way possible. That also eats up the most of your time. So it is a bummer that I think Cubs Twitter guy, Full Count Tommy, who I've never met but referenced here like twice, he posted something about how like the 3-10 Bears are by far the most promising thing in Chicago.
They are. They absolutely are.
It's not. It's not even close, really. The Bears have a lot of cap space that we expect them to use more than any other team coming up. They're going to have a top 5 pick. They've got a promising quarterback in Justin Fields, and we're sitting here with the Cubs, who have. As you say about the bad vibes on Cubs Twitter, for me, like I said, I've been less upset this week. It's kind of been watching the world realize that the emperor has no clothes when you and I and several other people, it's not just us, but have been sitting around being like, no, that emperor's naked, dude. He's been naked for like 3 years. And people just now are like, hold on a second. Hold on. Right. Is there not a plan here? Are you telling me the guy who has showed a unique inability and distaste for ever engaging any good player he already had on his team in extension talks? You're telling me that guy can't get it done in a competitive market when he has the incumbent's advantage and he can't get shit done. You're telling me that it's a surprise that he can't or is unwilling to go and land a major free agent? I am not surprised.
No, and I think you and I are both very much in the same camp, which was like, yes, I don't know that there's anything that Jed could have done in this one offseason that would have made me be like, oh, yes, everything else had also been handled properly because it led to this moment. Like, I don't care. Right. I don't care if the Cubs went out and signed Aaron Judge and Rodon and Correa and Bogarts and, won 100 games next year. I still wouldn't agree with the way things have played out. But I also think that, like, neither you nor I are so cranky that we were, like, hoping that this would happen. I would have loved to have been proven wrong. I want, no matter what, we want the Cubs to be competitive. We want there to be a reason to watch games. And I'm sitting here, I know it's still December, and I guess there are other moves that can be made and will be made, but, like, I'm starting to feel... I don't know. It's like if you're in like a bad relationship and someone just keeps like proving who they are, but meanwhile you've been like just trying to think the best of them, and it's like why was I thinking about going to London to see the Cubs next year? I don't know that I want to go to Citi Field, and I live here.
Right. I didn't go to Citi Field this year for the first time that I've lived in New York since 2004. And it's the first time. And it's not because as we've said a bunch, it's not because we don't root for these Cubs. It's the fault of no one on the roster, the fault of no one on the team. There's Justin Steele and Nico Horner, or Hayden Wisniewski, Keegan Thompson. These are guys who are promising players that's going to be fun to watch. Seiya Suzuki should be around for a few more years. But it's the fault of none of these players, but I want to see Justin Steele and Nico Horner like in a pennant race. I want to see these guys who are the quality of player that should be contending. I want to see them supported by things around them, and they are not being supported. Also, if you're Jameson Taillon, who signed on with the Cubs early in this offseason, and now you're watching them whiff on everybody, you got to be thinking like, hold on, was the paperwork processed yet? Are we sure that went through?
It's a little bit like Stroman last year. Actually, it's a lot like Stroman last year, where it's like you've clearly sold someone on something that you're going to do that it seems like you maybe aren't. And just as a quick recap, I'm sure anyone listening to this is already well aware, but since we last recorded, I would say that we still had some amount of hope. I feel like we maybe recorded right after the Bogarts deal went through with the Padres. But since that time, two of the catchers that have been linked to the Cubs gone. Obviously, Contreras signed with the Cardinals. I don't remember if we talked about that. We don't need to. It's been talked about enough. Also, he owes us nothing. Fuck you for complaining about it.
Oh my God, the baby vibes. I was hearing on one podcast because in the Players Tribune piece, Wilson Contreras didn't thank Cubs fans when he's been thanking Cubs fans, saying he wanted to stay here every day for the last several years, was never offered anything from this team. And in his Instagram post, spent all the time thanking Cubs fans, the first 2/3 of the thing. How many times do you personally need to be thanked by a guy? It makes my skin crawl, that level of thing. You're right. He owes us nothing. He's given us a ton. So he's gone. And then, as you mentioned, Christian Vazquez was a guy who I think by Cubs fans sort of talking themselves into overrating him, but he was certainly probably the best catcher in terms of a high defensive quality.
Yeah, he is a viable starting catcher.
Yeah, and the Cubs offered him the same deal, not exactly the same because there was an option that Minnesota offered him, or vice versa. I forget exactly what, but there was an option difference. But otherwise, the money was the same: 3 years for $30 million. And Vazquez said, "Cool, I'll be in Minnesota."
Isn't that's pretty telling as far as I'm concerned that Chicago has now become a less desirable place to play than a city where it does not reach the 30s until May. So Christian Vazquez goes to Minnesota. The Braves traded for Sean Murphy, the catcher from the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
Senga signed with the Mets. Correa signed an enormous deal with the Giants, who arguably, overpaid for someone after whiffing on a couple of people they really wanted. But you know what? That's what the market dictates. And if you're not willing to do it, you're not going to sign anyone.
You're not a big boy. You're not one of the big boys if this is the case. And the Correa deal, much like the Harper deal, you stretch it out over many years because the whatever you're annually paying the guy, it gets less as a percentage of your payroll, as a percent of the way to the CBT, to the fake salary cap, basically.
Right.
It over every year that money shrinks proportionally,
Yeah.
right? Both Harper and Correa are on less than $30 million a year for the duration of their contracts. Yeah, they're huge contracts. I don't know, Adam. I'm not at a point in my life where I can really afford to sweat the Cubs salary picture in 2032 at this point. Like, I am not, when it's, when we have President Charlie D'Amelio from TikTok at that point, like, I don't have the capacity to give a shit about that. And if you are worried and you're seeing some people be like, good, I don't want that contract. I don't want that good player because 2032 is going to be a real crunch. And that's going to be a waste of money. It's a stock line, but it's true. A, it's not your money. And B, so you're rooting for bad times now because you don't want bad times in 10 years. That's what you're telling me? I don't know that I'm going to be alive. So I'd like these next few years to be as good as possible.
Best case scenario in 2032, Kevin and I are going to be co-managing a Dominick's in the greater Chicago area.
I like where your head's at. We're moving to a more affordable cost of living, coming from Queens.
But we know the guys at Binny's. They hook us up. They so a couple things fall off the truck. We have an arrangement.
I think we could get by as a mid-market Dominick's duo. And so what you mentioning Murphy there too? Sean Murphy was a catcher who was clearly, because he was on the A's. The A's are just a Braves farm team at this point. They sent Olson there last year, and then now Murphy's going over there. He was clearly available, and you look at it, and this is when we talk about Jed not spending the Ricketts money. You can be like, well, how much of the Ricketts money is there? We know the Ricketts have been a big problem. The Ricketts are probably why Bryce Harper wasn't on this team and the window didn't just continue being extended, right? The Ricketts are why Yu Darvish had to be traded. We're fairly certain. But you can make trades as the head of baseball operations. You can, and Jed Hoyer has never made a trade for impact major league talent. When you look at Sean Murphy, and if you wanted to upgrade defensively and the Cubs need to upgrade offensively, Sean Murphy's a top level defensive catcher. You look at what the Braves gave up. They gave up William Contreras to the Brewers. So you're like, oh, do the Cubs really have a William Contreras to give up? I'm not sure they do, but it's also not relevant because the A's it had to be a 3-team trade for the A's to get what they wanted. And the A's got Esteury Ruiz from the Brewers, who's a very speedy on-base guy with no power, center fielder. The Cubs could have competed with that deal. It's sort of the Arenado thing, where this is that deal. Don't think about the William Contreras of it, because the Brewers just needed to get that. The Cubs could have directly engaged the A's and given the A's more than what the A's got and been a better team for it. And we have a general manager who's unwilling, or does not have a general manager, I guess is technically Carter Hawkins, him too, but had a baseball operations, the team president, Jed Hoyer, who is unwilling or unable to have the imagination and the ability to ever swing a deal like that.
Right. We're not the Pirates. You don't trade for all of these young prospects just to hope they pan out in 9 years. You trade them so that you can, or trade for them so that you can flip them at some point and get actual major league talent. I mean, what are there 2 extra Contreras brothers we don't know about who are going to sign with the Pirates and the Reds at this point? Like, well, what is our life right now?
It's funny you say that, because I think there was a third Contreras who was in the Pirates organization. Amazing. He has since retired, but maybe we can get him back. Call him back. Also, if you look at what seems to be scaring Hoyer off, all the reporting we're seeing is like, oh, he doesn't want to give the years. It's more the years than the dollars. To me, it seems like both. But if you look at short-term contracts, these are the names you had to be signing. Jose Abreu on a 3-year deal. If your plan is short-term, okay, but then you have to get your short-term guys. Jose Abreu, Starling Marte, last
Verlander.
Verlander, yeah, you're exactly. If you that and that is if you're a team of ambition and of the size the Cubs are, that's who you're going after. Verlander's another one. Just looking at offense, Abreu, Marte, Mark Canha is a step down from that, but these are the guys who are on that. And then besides that, you know who else were the guys on 5 years and less deals that would have really improved your offense here? Can you think of any? I can think of three:
Kyle
Anthony
Schwarber.
Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber, and Wilson Contreras. And if that is your plan, that is who you needed to land. Some combination of these guys, and you needed to get out and get it done. And it would have made all the sense in the world if Jed Hoyer could not get what he wanted from Contreras at the deadline, which is also his fault. But if he had then turned the strategy to this is going to be our second catcher and a DH, but that's offense right there. And you could have probably locked him up for less short term, a 5-year deal, whatever. But if the 10-year deal plus is what's scaring you off for stars that your team does not have, that's the plan you have to do. And that's a plan he is also whiffed on.
Right, and I just don't understand, unless I'm missing something, if the Ricketts have indeed loosened the purse strings and are saying, hey, we have money for you to go spend. It's this weird, like, if your boss says, like, hey, here's $500 to go on a shopping spree, are you looking back and saying, like, are you sure you don't mind if I spend it? Like, no, I'm taking it and I'm doing what I want with it.
Yeah, I'm spending $200 now, and then I'm going to wait. I'm going to look at next year's crop, and then walking back in and being like, I'm spending another 50. Like, what are you doing? You've got the money. When do you intend to contend? Like, because I'll tell you what, if the window to contention right now, and on the positive side of things, right? So the Cubs are rumored to be possibly favorites, kind of, to sign Dansby Swanson.
Mm-hmm.
If you sign Dansby Swanson and Carlos Rodon, who's out there right now, and Justin Turner, now you're telling me this is sort of, I still don't think it's good enough. I mean, I think
if they signed those three players, I think we're competing for a wild card. I think that's like the reasonable best case scenario there.
But it's signing at this point. It's like you'd have to sign all of them because I think just by nature of him being out there and being the last guy left, I think we're overrating Dansby Swanson too, who had an amazing year last year, 6+ WAR.
Yeah,
the guy's had 2 above average offensive seasons in his career. One was last year, and the other one was 2020, which counts, but it's not a full year,
right.
So. Yeah. And also, if that was your plan to get Dansby Swanson, you should have jumped the market because now he's going to have a bigger contract than he ever would have had even like 3 weeks ago.
Right. Well, it feels very much, it's like the real life version. You and I have both done auction style fantasy drafts, right?
Yes.
And like part of doing that is that when you really want the guy that you want, sometimes you have to overpay. And does that mean that then later you're kind of picking up spare parts? Yeah. And does that always work out? No. But you definitely don't want to be the guy who's like, no, these price tags are too high. And now I've got $75 left of my $200 budget, and I guess I'll spend it on Steven Brault. Yeah. You fucked up. You have made a mistake. You had too much money left.
It's a really good comp. And I would love Dansby Swanson on this team. But do you remember, I also remember seeing like a tweet that was like, after the rumors about the Cubs signing 2 of the shortstops was hot like a week ago. So I'm being like, man, if Jed signs 2 of those guys, it's gonna be a real mic drop moment. Hey, you dropped a lot of other things. There's no
the ball.
He dropped it's a ball drop moment for what happened here. Because to me, Dansby Swanson makes sense as one of the 2, right? It's like he makes his profile good defensively, has a really below average arm. So in terms of projecting him to stay there at shortstop, I mean, I think Nico's got a stronger arm than he does. He's a good middle infielder in terms of defense, but the offense is not. It's not really like changing the shape of your lineup he can't be the centerpiece offensively of this team. He's a supporting part. Right. So it would have made sense to me if you also got any of the other 3. Now I hope they sign all the good players, but also I don't know where you're going here. Because also, Adam, let me tell you who is going to leave at the end of this year if they're not traded before that.
Yeah, a lot.
Ian Happ. Marcus Stroman has an opt-out at the end of this year. Why wouldn't he? And not just because of contention stuff, but because of hitting the market again. Like you'd rather hit the market a year younger, right? And
unless he has a terrible year, either way, it's bad, right? If he has a great year, he's gone after this year, and if he has a bad year, then he stays. But he just had a bad year.
Exactly. So Marcus Stroman, Kyle Hendricks, Cody Bellinger, similar situation, and Ian Happ are you're taking off this team at the end of this year. So now you're asking, why are they here now even? Because it turns to a place where it makes the most sense to trade, Stroman and Happ certainly, and Hendricks too. Bellinger just signed, so they can't trade him for a little bit,
Right.
but yeah.
Well, then maybe what'll happen is there'll be speculation about Stroman and Happ being traded at the deadline, and then nothing will happen, and then they'll just walk because apparently that's what we do.
And then we'll get like the 75th pick in the draft
Yeah.
if we offer them a qualifying offer. And we'll say, well, that's the best anyone could have ever possibly done. And then watch them sign contracts like Contreras did that show how they're actually valued. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like that's a lot of quick talk, but that's a pretty good quick summation of where we're at here, and really it was interesting, as we said, to watch the sort of general sentiment come around to where we've been this whole time once Correa went off the board. Who Correa, by the way, they never made an offer to.
Yeah, what do we attribute that to? Did they not think that he was the guy? Like, what is the reason that there would not have at least been an offer out there? And also, why was there so much reporting that the Cubs were in on him if they weren't?
I guess like in on is vague, right? So they
Right.
definitely talked to him. They met with him. According to Gordon Wittenmeyer, they discussed parameters, but they never like an offer was never made. Whereas Minnesota made like a 10-year 285
Right.
offer. So and you look at the deal was I think for Correa 13 for 350, and I mean if the years are what bother you, I would have done 10 for 340. I mean, like that's still
Yeah.
the deal. It's 10 million less and 3 years less. I mean, if the money's not a problem but the years are, cut a few off, go a little higher per year if that's but you know why teams aren't doing that? Because it's better for your competitive balance tax number if you lower the average, and deferred
Right.
money is less money paid ultimately. So
Yeah, and I don't really know what the like overarching principle of this is, or if there is one, or if it's just Jed Hoyer not doing his job very well. But if the mindset is, hey, it's the Cubs, it's Wrigley Field, it's Chicago in the summer, we're still going to get people out to games. I don't think that's the case. I mean, there's always going to be a subset of people who want to go get hammered at Wrigley in July, but we saw what the attendance was like last year, and it was not good, especially down the stretch. I just don't.
lowest in a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is way above my pay grade, but I have to assume that in the years of like 2015 through 2017, the team made a lot of money,
Right.
and yes, they spent money to get the team as good as it was. But isn't I mean, do I have to fall back on the old gambling addict, like you got to spend money to make money sort of thing? Like we're not doing that.
No, we're not. I mean, gambling addict, but also that's just like it's called investment, right? Like
Right.
this is when people like Ricketts apologists are like, well, but they had to renovate the stadium and do these things. It's like, yeah, yeah, they do that. They pay money, and then you know who makes money? They do. Like it's not charity. This
Right.
is a money making scheme that is fine. That's what you're supposed to do. But
Hmm.
it's been renovated. We're sitting here, still 60 million under the CBT right now, 60
Yeah.
million and quibbling over, losing Christian Vasquez because you won't go $2 million up or whatever to make it a clear better deal. It's just it sucks because even though you and I are people who didn't like the direction things went, there still has been a way that you could have gotten to a very competitive short window here before the prospects
Hmm.
the Cubs have start coming up. And they've biffed it. Like there's nothing they can do short of, as we said, signing Rodon and Swanson and Turner, like basically collective Conforto too. Those are things they could do. Michael Conforto is out
Right.
there as a DH, rotational outfielder there. That's a left-handed bat. There could be some upside there. There's things you could do to get like okay. The Cubs should not be needing to like hit a like 6-player parlay to be okay at this point.
Well, and what Theo sold us on, and what I think we all hoped Hoyer's vision would be moving forward, it was like if you get to the playoffs, no one knows what's going to happen. You could be the best team in baseball. You could be a team
Hmm.
like the Phillies who ekes their way in and gets the World Series, but you have to be in the playoffs to give yourself a chance. And
Right.
the way I understood what Epstein's vision for this team was like, we want to be like the Dodgers. We want to be
Hmm.
like the Braves were in the 90s. We want to be like the Yankees are. We want to compete every single year. We want to give ourselves a chance. And if we end up winning one World Series, if we end up winning four, either way, the goal is to be in the postseason every year. And that happened from 2015 to 2020.
Yeah.
So, yes, they should have spent more at certain times, but ultimately, there was a window of contention in the sense that the Cubs kept making the playoffs for, what was that, 6, 7 straight years.
Yes, made the Final Four three times.
Yeah,
Won a World Series. Also won the division in 2020. This is, I mean, it's the most successful run in modern Cubs history, and it was great.
right.
And there was
But
no
right
reason.
now, it feels like we're getting close to like 3 consecutive years of really not competing whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it more than doesn't feel like that. It is that. It is. I mean,
Yeah.
very much that. And it's we watched the Dodgers, who bizarrely, I mean, the Dodgers fans don't have a lot to complain about in terms of their organization, whatever. I mean, the Dodgers keep signing guys, right? They sign these stars that we dreamed of, where it's like Mookie Betts going over there, whatever. They traded for Trey Turner, and their farm system is still, I think, still ranked ahead of where the Cubs is right now.
Yeah.
The Dodgers this season are trying to get reset by going under the CBT, and it is very funny that why they're struggling to do that is because of the Trevor Bauer deal and not
Yeah.
you know how baseball moves. We remember with the Chris Bryant grievance where it's like, we can't figure this out in 4 years, like, so
Right.
baseball is struggling with that, but they signed Trevor Bauer and it's complicating things for them. And that is chef's kiss perfect for me.
It is
Um,
pretty great.
yeah, but they also
I'll tell you
shouldn't
what,
be worrying
yeah.
about it. Yeah.
I'm gonna need some CBT infused gummies right now because I'm stressed.
Yeah, sponsor us, CBT infused gummies that are supposed to make everything even out. Just supposed to
But
even out
much
the
like
league.
Jed Hoyer, my opinion on CBD is like, is this really doing anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm told there's something in here, but I feel the same. I'm still pretty bummed, if I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. So, all right. What else is
Well,
on your mind? Well, actually, I have something.
yeah. What do you have?
Breaking news,
Yeah. What's up?
Adam. We got a Jeff Passanbaum.
Okay.
The Cubs have signed right-handed reliever Brad Boxberger. So, okay, sure.
Cool.
Yep. Brad Boxberger, who probably the most famous thing he did, as far as we care about, is he gave up the famous back-to-back homers to David Bodie and Anthony Rizzo when Rizzo walked it off. A game that actually I was at. I was at with our friend Ken Schultz, and my wife was there as well. So that's
Remember
Brad
when all
Boxberger.
of this was fun?
I do, man.
That was the best.
Used to enjoy it a lot. Brad Boxberger, just a quick heads up for you guys. He was in Milwaukee last year. He was good. His ERA was 2.95, and he's been a good reliever through his career. Last couple of years, he's thrown 64 innings basically per year. And the Cubs are good with these kind of guys, right? Good at, like, with veteran relievers, bringing them into the bullpen. Affordable 1-year deals, that kind of stuff. Great. Okay. So that's one bullpen piece in there. Fine.
And you can pre-order your box burger with or without cheese for a cool $34 at Stretch outside Wrigley Field.
Do it, folks. Is there anything else to discuss, Adam, on the before we get out of
No,
here?
you got any personal plugs? Any things you're going to be
Personal
doing?
plug. I'm not discussing my
How's
personal
Tulsa?
plugs. The Tulsa was good. I did a week in Tulsa. Got some clips up from it. If you want to follow me at Kevin McCaff on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, all those things. I got some clips up there. I had a lady. An All Lives Matter heckler that I got to deal with this week, so that was cute.
Fun.
You can check that out, and yeah, I'm going to be doing Adam's show. Adam's headlining a show I'll be dropping in New York on December 20th at Stand Up New York. I'm going to be in Chicago, just doing a quick spot at the Lincoln Lodge on December 27th. And then me and another comedian named JL Covan are going to be combining to do a fancy venue called the City Winery in Chicago in February 7th.
Cool. I know JL a little bit. A very tall man.
Very tall, 6'7". So yeah, between he's 6'7", I'm 6'2". We're bringing a lot of frontline business to that to the City Winery on February 7th. So those are my Chicago dates where most of our people are, and if anyone and Mason City, Illinois on December 23rd. Ooh. Actually, if you're near there, please come on by. But yeah.
I know it's not, but anytime I hear you say Mason City, I always think like, oh, is that the place where dancing is not allowed?
I mean, I would say there's a lot of the quote unquote city that does appear to be that kind of way. But also it's like there are a few places I've gotten more fucked up in my life. I blacked out in a barbershop after the first show I did there. So they dance, but it seems like a footloose town. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm sorry to have asked about your personal plugs. I mean, although great stocking stuffers, if I may say so.
Absolutely. Talk about stuffing.
It's stuff more than a stocking, I'll tell you that.
Folks,
this episode really brought to you by...
We're really racking up the fake sponsors today.
We sure are. Well, I'll give you all some personal plugs. They're very brief. Anyone in the Northeast, I'm going to be headlining Stand Up New York on Tuesday, December 20th. I'm going to be headlining 2 shows at my home club in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the Stress Factory, on Friday, December 23rd. I don't even think it's on the website yet, but if anyone's in the Northeast area, come check that out. And I think that's all I got for now.
Stress Factory, also the title of this Cubs offseason for us. Thanks for listening, everybody. It is at Away Games Pod everywhere you want to find it. And hopefully we'll be back talking about a wildly different scenario next week. Thanks for listening.